Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 11 of Starting from Scratch. This week's Starting from Scratch bow technique, I'm going to go into Ricochet and why practicing the easiest bowing of all is so valuable for beginners. This week's string hand technique, I'm going to do string hand pizzicato, but no longer just plucking open strings, but I'm going to start to pluck stop notes, much more difficult. But before I start with all of that, I have to show a success. I could do this since yesterday. Very suddenly it worked out. I could do the finger bowing right down here. Still sounds terrible, but I don't know if you remember so far, I could only go until about here. And yesterday I just thought, oh, well, I'll just try this and see what happens. I could actually do it. It's very, very strenuous. I notice that I'm not strong enough in the way I need for the bow technique, for the finger bowing right at the frog. That's why it sounds so terrible, because I'm not carrying the bow properly, but at least I can do the movement. So that's made me very hopeful about the whole undertaking. I was very happy when I discovered that yesterday. Now, this week's bow technique, Ricochet. Why is Ricochet the easiest bowing of all, and why is it very healthy for a beginner to practice it? Okay, it's the easiest bowing of all because it's a passive bowing, which means the bow does it all. And the basis of Ricochet is just this, which everybody can do. It's just a matter of dropping the bow on the string and letting it bounce. And do that on all strings. Now, why is that valuable to practice? Because it is a passive bowing. Now, of course, when we start out, we have to try to stop the bow from bouncing. All of that is correct. But by letting the bow bounce and having our bow hand become a passenger, which just follows the movement of the bow, we're learning something very important, because we have to follow the bow to a certain extent. Even with very, very controlled bowings, it's still a bowing, which means we are working with the energy of the bow more than with the bow itself. And to get used to the hand being a passenger and following the movement of the bow is something which is very valuable if one does that fairly at the beginning of one's violin journey, because one learns to control the bow better. One starts feeling how the bow works, how it bounces, how the energy of the bow works. So just letting the bow bounce, make sure you relax your hand while it's bouncing, because your hand is just a passenger, but you're obviously still following the movement of the bow. The next interesting thing about Ricochet is the bow can only bounce if it's light. We stop the bow from bouncing by adding weight in the upper half, leaning the hand forward, bringing down the stick, adding weight. That stops it from bouncing. So if we want it to bounce, we have to do the opposite. We have to lean our hand back towards the fourth finger. Basically, we wouldn't even need the first finger for Ricochet, because the weight of our hand is leaning back towards the fourth finger. So we are working with weight and balance distribution once again. Now, the next step with Ricochet, if one's done that a little bit, and it's very healthy just to do that, just let it bounce. Find out whether you're perhaps leaning your hand forward too much. If you lean your hand forward, it will bounce a bit faster. If you lean your hand forward too much, it will stop it from bouncing, like that. But at first it's quite good just to let it bounce slowly, leaning the hand back towards the fourth finger. You're teaching your hand how the bow works with its own energy. The next step is to let it bounce a certain amount of times and then catching it by changing direction to an up bow. Now, I've never done this. Let's see if this works. Yes, I want it to bounce 4 times and then catch it with an up bow. Yeah, 4th finger slipped off of the stick. That, of course, is bad for Ricochet because the 4th finger is very important there because we're leaning our hand backwards. Yeah, the E string is a bit tricky with bouncing bowings, particularly Ricochet, because you can see G string, D string, and A string, the bow is comparatively parallel to the ground. On the E string, the bow has a different angle to the string, so that's a little bit tricky. Next step, I want it to bounce 3 times and then catch it. Okay, working out. When I change direction to the up bow to catch the Ricochet, I'm curling my fingers and bending my thumb. Not quite as much as I would like to, but when you catch it with the up bow, catch it with your fingers, and hopefully your 4th finger doesn't slide off quite as often as mine does. I think this is also getting better, but I'm not worrying about my 4th finger sliding off anymore, so I just accept it and I just trust it will get better. But that's another thing which one is practicing by catching the Ricochet, changing the direction. Funnily enough, I find this change of direction and catching it by curling my fingers and bending my thumb most difficult. The actual bouncing is not difficult because that the bow does on its own. It's completely passive bowing, the bow can do it. Now I want to see if I can catch the Ricochet after it bounced only twice. No, there we go. Okay, bouncing just twice and catching it is obviously most difficult because I have to catch it sooner, and that's what I'm finding most difficult. But I'm already noticing that my bow hand is learning the energy of the bow. This is hard to describe, but I'm noticing that my bow hand is feeling more at one with the bow, and that's what practicing Ricochet gives you. Plus it's fun, so I'm not worried about catching other strings at this stage when I'm doing the Ricochet. I'm glad if I can do it at all. So when you first start out with Ricochet, don't worry about if you hit some other strings as well. Concentrate on feeling the bow bouncing and catching it and getting used to the hand also being a passenger, and then bringing in the change of direction to catch the Ricochet. This week's string hand technique is string hand pizzicato, now introducing stopped notes, which is obviously a lot more difficult. I made a video on exactly this exercise that I'm going to be trying out now myself. You'll find it in my Paganini Technique for Beginners series. It's under Left Hand Pizzicato 2. where I describe the whole exercise. I'll put the link in the description. There's even sheet music available for it now, in case you're interested in having sheet music to put on the music stand while you practice it. But I have to seriously also say that you can do all of this by ear. The sheet music is not completely necessary. It's just for some people like having the sheet music to go along with it. Okay, I'm going to start on the E string because string hand pizzicato is easiest there. I'm not using the bow because if I use the bow for this, my bow hand will most likely tense up, and I just want to concentrate on the string hand, so I'm doing that without the bow. I'm going to start just plucking the E string, the open E string, with each finger twice. Now I'm going to put my first finger on F sharp, and I'm going to control whether it's in tune. And now I'm going to have each finger pluck this F sharp twice. And then have the first finger pluck the open E string. Now I'm going to do first finger F sharp, second finger G, and now each finger plucking the G twice, and then the second finger plucks the first finger, and the first finger plucks the open string. Now I'm going to go all the way to the A. Always need plenty of time to control for intonation because that still is the most important thing. Now fourth finger plucks the A. That's not very strong. Better. Now I'm going to put all fingers on the string. Okay, I doubt whether my microphone picked that up. It was very soft, but I actually could pluck each finger. Let me try this again. A little bit better. This is very strenuous for the hand, for the fingers. One has to really be careful not to get blisters, but it is addressing the problem which I have, that my second finger, as soon as I put my fourth finger down and it's in tune, the second finger slides up towards the fourth finger because my former bow hand, now string hand, is not widened at the bass joints like my other hand is. So this is one of the ways which one can practice it, by practicing string hand pizzicato. It's important at first not to try to do it too loud. It doesn't have to be loud. It's more a matter of learning the controlled way of plucking the strings, and loudness will come with strength later on. It's more important to actually pluck the string. I need to do this on the A string now. This is going to be quite a bit more difficult. Okay, and now fourth finger plucks the B, third finger, second, and the B plucks the A. Okay, now second finger C, first the B, now fourth finger, third, second, first. Yeah, sometimes they're still very soft, but I'm not worried about that as long as the movement is correct. Third finger, okay, fourth finger, third, second, Yeah, it's very soft. That's because I don't have the necessary strength. I'm trying not to force it in spite of being very ambitious about it, but I know forcing it won't help. And now all fingers. Yeah, nearly. Yeah, nearly. I don't know if you could hear that my second finger C was nearly a C sharp because of this problem of it moving, sliding towards the fourth finger. So that's something which I'm going to have to work on a lot. But exactly this string hand pizzicato exercise helps with widening the fingers at the bass joints. It makes the fingers strong and independent from each other. One just has to be careful not to practice it too long. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and good luck and happy practicing to all of us.